Hey everybody, welcome back to 32 All the Way. It's been a little while with all the craziness in the world and everything else going on. Like everybody else, I shut down for a bit. And then I had, for some reason, a whole bunch of new subscribers. So I started looking for some interesting people, some different people to interview here. And this is actually going to be quite a bit of a departure from the things we've done before. I would like to welcome Virginia Humphrey. How are you, Virginia?
I'm doing great, thanks. How are you doing today?
Good. Virginia Humphrey is the illustrator for the Candy Cow series, which is written in tandem with her mother, Elaine Chaklos. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, maybe some themes behind the books, which ones you suggest. I wasn't realizing it when you first sent the list. I only had a couple pieces of paper in the printer. I didn't realize how many you guys wrote. I ran out of paper, so there's quite a few if people decide to get interested in the series. What's the let's start at the beginning, I guess. What's the deal here?
So last Christmas, my mom came down. She brought this little red folder with her, and she showed me all these stories that she had written when my brother and I were little. And I remember hearing them when I was younger, but I had, once she showed them to me, but I'd completely forgotten about them otherwise. And she said she tried to get them published when Rex and I were little, but then it didn't happen. So she just kind of put them away in a drawer. And then when she came down, she brought them and she said, I have these, I want to do something with them. Will you draw me pictures? I've always been interested in art and I like drawing and I like painting. But it is not my profession. I am not trained.
Oh, okay.
I don't really know what I'm doing. I have.
They look great from the ones that are all up on the wall here and stuff. They look fantastic. That was going to be the next. That was going to be the next question. If you actually had any kind of training, it's not to cut you off. I tried hard to be an artist, and it was just terrible. It never worked out.
My training ended at high school art class,
okay.
So that's pretty much where I ended up. But she asked me if I would draw some pictures for her. And I told her, I don't know how good it'll be, but I'll try. And so I tried to draw a little bit and they were horrible, like stick figure type level, horrible. And so I went back to mom and I said, this really isn't good. I'd be embarrassed. I can't do this. Maybe we should find another way. And she said, no, thank you. Will you please try again? And she's my mom. So I said yes. And I tried again. And they were still awful. And so I went back to her and I said, Mom, my best friend's an artist. Maybe she can do something or she can introduce you to some people who actually know what they're doing. And she said, no, thanks. Just give it one more shot. And so I did. And it ended up turning into a series of 10 different stories. I got Candy to look like not a stick figure, to be a cute little creature. And then I started working on her friends. And then we started going through the stories and we started just creating all of them. And this has been since December of 2020. And we have self-published 10 separate children's books.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. So are you doing everything then by hand? Like, I know there's been such a revolution in technology everywhere for the last 30, 40 years, but I assume with drawing, it's the same. Like, do you have one image and then they keep using it or they move it around a little bit? Or are you actually doing, like, you're drawing every single thing?
I do it on my tablet. Because since I have a day job and a family and, life in general, I lost the ability to actually get out all the art supplies, put them together, take nice photos, put them in a book and do all that. So I do it all on my tablet. And that does help me because her face, I can take from one image and move to the next and reposition it and redraw it that way. But I always have a reference of it. So that makes it go a lot faster and it makes it a lot easier.
Well, no, I'm so fascinated with it because, like I was saying earlier, I tried. It just wasn't my thing. I didn't have the skills to do it, and I tried. It wasn't, I did it once or twice, and then okay, it doesn't work. I took the art classes in high school and the whole deal, and it was just like, it was terrible. But I still know some people who do everything by hand, and I'm just amazed. Like for my own stuff, just the little things that I've been able to make that you're like, wow, you think you never would have been able to make that, 15, 20 years ago. So what?
Fascinating.
You know what it is? There's so much out there, and it's just, again, computers weren't everywhere when I was in high school. They were starting to be pretty prevalent, and it was daunting, and if you made a mistake, it was weird to go change it up. But now, like, I've got programs and stuff for my own use, and you're like, wow, I can't believe I can make this stuff. So tell us about Candy Cow.
So she is a young cow. She lives on a farm in Crossingville, Pennsylvania, which is actually where my mom grew up and how my mom grew up. And she and her friends have different adventures that help teach the readers how to be their best selves, how to think for themselves, how to make up their own minds and make good choices, how to turn bad days around. So really all the stories have some lesson for the tiny people in them. And it's a gentle way to help kids think about how they want to or should treat others.
That's awesome. I think it's a very fine line with kids' books that, well, first of all, you don't want to be too preachy because they figure it out right away and they toss it in the corner. But like, what is the actual specific age demographic that you're going for?
They're really suited for kids 6 to 7 and under.
Okay.
And the ones who are older can start to read it for themselves, but for the younger kids, they usually like the colors and the pictures in it. And you start to help the 3, 4, 5-year-olds to start to see how different people, or in this case, creatures, really behave and treat others. And it's a good chance to talk to them about, what would you do in that situation? How would that make you feel if that happened to you?
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I find that must be really hard because I don't have any kids, but watching other people's kids or having relatives come over, something's the coolest thing in the world. And then the next time they come over, you say, hey, let's do that. No, we don't want to do that.
Oh, that's every 5 minutes. Yeah.
It has to be a really hard balance to keep those stories, to keep them all interested.
We try. It is an effort every time, and a lot of these stories were already completed when my brother and I were younger, and so now it's more of an editing process or updating process for them. But they all have slightly different settings, different stories, and different issues. One of the little tangents that we went on recently was in Sly's Not a Bad Egg. And in that story, Sly was picked on. He's a little fox, he's a pup. And he was picked on because he was shy, and so people thought that he was being unkind or mean or snubbing them. And so one day he heard them say that he was a bad egg. And then he decided to be a bad egg. And so he started misbehaving, and he got himself into a lot of trouble. And once he did that, he realized, this isn't who I am, this isn't who I want to be. And so then he sort of turned himself around. And then you get to see how he's trying. And nobody's perfect. Sly isn't perfect when he turns himself around either. But he still can try to be his best self.
Oh, that's
and
great.
That's really all any of us can do is try.
Yeah, it really is. It's just, again, what scares me, and it's something that comes up with a lot of when I interview different people. We were talking about a couple different things before we turned the camera on. Everybody just seems to have some kind of hidden agenda now. And it's just nice to see books that are just, excuse me, done in that fashion for kids. Because most of them just want a little story. They don't want any exposition or anything that that doesn't need to fit in there.
And my mom, she is probably the most ethical and moral person that I know. So that's really just kind of like the level that she tries to keep it at, is be kind to others. Everything really revolves around being kind to others. And so I think it's really been a privilege to work with her and to be able to spend this time with her, even when we have to stay far apart because of the pandemic, to be able to create these soft things that I hope make the tiny people smile.
That's excellent. You mentioned earlier your own family. Are they interested in the stories, or they don't care?
I have a 7-year-old, and he is adorable, and he actually inspired one of our stories.
Oh, great.
Candy and the Stars. That was one of the ones that Mom wrote recently. And it was because he asked his guppy, which is what he called my mom, to make a story about Candy looking at stars, because that's what he loved to do that week. And so she did.
That's great.
Yeah, so he enjoys them. We like going through them. He gives different advice about pieces. In the first book, weeds and flowers, he actually picked out all the colors for a butterfly that's in there. So every time he gets to see that, he's absolutely thrilled.
That's awesome.
It's exciting.
So because they sat in a drawer for a while, you were saying they were obviously stories from when you were younger. Did you have to update anything? Did you have to really change anything?
We definitely updated, some of the language in it whenever we're talking about things that are out in the world. Things are pretty different than when I was a kid, because that was a very long time ago. So we've made some changes, and also even basic stuff like rules of grammar. Some of those have shifted since I was little. So doing those little updates, as well as some of the conversations between people, and just making sure that it's accurate for the world we live in now.
Yeah, it's really difficult, I think, for any kind of books to reflect what's going on now. I mean, obviously there's things, there's things that, good thing that they're gone. We don't need them anymore, so to speak. But especially with children's books, I think it's you have to be a little extra careful, because some of the things that we know now that were in some of the ones from years ago, it's like, what? They're like, somebody actually read this and nobody complained about it. But I guess we just have to think in our own time, our own context, and say this is what we're doing.
Absolutely. And I was talking with somebody on Twitter the other day about cartoons that we watched when we were little. I pulled up some of the ones that I saw and I enjoyed when I was younger, and I looked at them before I let my son see them, and I couldn't believe I was allowed to watch some of that when I was his age. So it all kind of changes, and the context is different, and they're little sponges. So you have to be really careful about what you teach them, because they will hold on to it in their head forever.
It's super amazing. I had a mother who was French, so I was sent to a French grade school. And one of my, I'm not sure if you've ever heard of it before, it's actually Belgian. One of my favorite cartoons when I was a kid was called Lucky Luke. He was a cowboy out in the West. And things that, I mean, I'm 50 now, so talking, 40 years ago when I was reading in school, but, calling people derogatory names, like all the characters smoked, anyone of color was just shifty and lazy. And it was like, you never just, okay, whatever, when you read it. And then when I started teaching myself, I went back to want to show them a couple of cartoons. I'm like, no, I can't show this. There's no way I can show this.
The violence that was in them. Yeah. Oh my goodness, it was crazy. And yet somehow we didn't end up sociopaths. So I'm going to take that as a good sign.
You know what? The violence, we could sit here all day and talk about it. I personally thought it was hilarious when Daffy Duck got his beak shot off, knowing damn well that I couldn't shoot my brother in the face without, ending my brother's life. So a lot of times when you hear that argument, I still say, look, like, I know better than that. I know I can't grab somebody and hit him like a boxing bag, and they were pretty violent when you put them up against today's standards.
What you see today, right?
Now you've done 10 in a year. So you are self-publishing?
We are self-publishing on Amazon. And since so much of the language was actually created already, while she was working on updating those and editing, I started working on the pictures and the layouts of the books.
That's amazing. That's great. So what's coming up?
Well, right now, my son asked her to do one where Candy is in space. So she has.
You knew that was coming.
It had to. It was inevitable. So she has actually been reading a lot of stories about astronauts and what it's like, and especially because he told her that she can't go into space for real without training. So she's been looking into what that actually is, and I have no idea how it's going to turn out, but I'm sure it'll be a lot of fun. And my mom said that there are going to be 2 co-commanders for the mission, and she asked me to make one of them look like our dog Otis, who's a black lab who is incredibly sweet and as smart as a can of soup, but very, very loving. So I started working on what he will look like in the stories.
That's awesome. So a new character for everybody then.
Exactly. Yes.
Have you found any success outside of your family with these? Like, are people picking them up and taking a look at them?
Let's see. So last year, after I got to the second book, I honestly just became a bit overwhelmed with having to stay home all the time, trying to do my day job and life and be with my family and in the middle of a pandemic. So I stopped any and all marketing for the books, period. After the second one, I just focused on drawing, focused on my family, and focused on not going insane from sitting in my house all the time. And so that's part of how we got through so many books. But with those, so after 3 months, really stopped talking about any of and all of it. And we ended up selling, I want to say 100 books last year.
It's not bad at all. Not bad at all.
Really not. Like I was so grateful and so amazed that that happened, that, you know, people found them and they appreciated them and they enjoyed them and they brought them home into their lives. So I was very grateful for that. And now this year, since there are so many more, I am hoping to share these stories with more tiny people, because I think they are a very nice way to have these conversations and to just look at something that's cute and gentle. So hopefully more success in the coming year.
Really, I mean, seriously, that's off to a great start. Most people, they figure most indies sell like 5 to 10 books if they're lucky, and you know, your friends buy one and maybe you luck out and somebody else gets one. So to have that success already early on is, you know, somebody must be liking them. The word of mouth is out there. You know, it only takes it to fall into one set of hands and start talking to people about it, and it goes from there.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. So we'll keep our fingers crossed for that.
That's great. I thank you so much, Virginia, for your time. Everybody, this is going to be linked up on the channel, and I'm going to try and there are quite a few here. I think Virginia said earlier 10. I'm going to try and put a link up for each and every one, and then again to their page and their information. And then go out and support Candy Cow. Find something nice and wholesome and something normal, I guess is the best way to say it. Something normal for your kids to read.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for your time, Virginia. This is 32 all the way signing out.